everyone. My name is Brian Mitchell, and I'm in Inside Sales.
I'm Lucas Whitmer. I'm a product development engineer.
And we're here today to talk about the hole saw lineup that we offer. So I see a lot of choices here in front of us. Lucas, can you tell me what's the difference between all these choices?
Yeah, we've got quite a few options. So the first one I'd like to talk about is our standard bimetal hole saw. So bimetal implying two metals. You know, you have the backer and then that welded on edge wire that we mill through and then turn it into a hole saw. So the teeth are made out of a different type of steel than the body. This is more of your general purpose type of hole saw. Next up, we've got the Kraken Carbide-Tipped hole saw. So you can see that very similar to our standard bimetal, but instead of having a different type of metal welded to the edge, we've got carbide tips welded to the edge that are ground and then made into a hole saw. Next up is our Carbide Grit hole saw. So this is a carbide powder that's been brazed onto the rim of the saw. And then next after that is our Diamond Grit hole saws. So very similar to the Carbide Grit hole saw, but instead of being carbide, these are diamond.
Now that we've talked about all these different hole saws, can you explain when I would use that type of hole saw?
Yeah, so the bimetal hole saw is really your general purpose, good place to start type of hole saw. So this is going to be able to do everything from wood, plastic, mild steel, and aluminum very well. But when you get into some really tough, more abrasive applications, that's a good time to upgrade to the Kraken hole saw. So the advantage you get here is that carbide's more wear resistant than high-speed steel is. So this can cut things like stainless steel, fiberglass, and anything that's more abrasive that the bimetal hole saw just can't cut. From there, you can go to the Carbide Grit hole saw. This is going to be tailor-made more to abrasive applications. Stuff like bricks, cinder blocks, things like that. Things that you don't really want a tooth on your hole saw to cut. Things that you want to more or less sand your way through. And then the Diamond Grit is kind of related to that. So anything that's more wear resistant than the carbide can cut would be a good place to use these diamond hole saws. Stuff like tile, ceramics, things that carbide just kind of can't go through.
Okay.
A big thing that you need to think about though when you're using these is keeping your teeth lubricated. You don't have to use lubrication all the time on the toothed hole saws, but it will prolong the life of your blade because you're keeping those tips nice and cool. With these hole saws, it's strongly recommended to kind of keep some of the dust down and keep that powder that's on the teeth nice and cool as well.
So now that we talked about what they can do, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of these hole saws?
So good question. So a good place to start is this bimetal hole saw, and it can do most things very well, except the teeth are kind of fine on it. And if you get into very gummy applications that are producing a lot of chips that want to stick to the hole saw, they will start to clog up after a while. The advantage here with the Kraken is that the tooth spacing is a little bit further apart. So you've got more gullet capacity, so you're kind of getting past that disadvantage of the bimetal here. The problem though is that carbide is very brittle, right? So if you're doing very thin metals or structural applications like a saddle cut in a jig, these carbide tips just don't hold up quite as well as the bimetal would. So there's the advantage and disadvantage there, and there's a time and place for both of these. When you get into the Carbide Grit hole saw, big advantage is that you can sand your way through things. So you get a very clean surface finish on your holes. But if you're not using a lubricant or water to keep your teeth clean, you do produce a lot of dust, and you will have a slow, kind of hot cut. And then with these Diamond Grit blades, you know, like I was saying earlier, the advantage here is that you can go through things that a Carbide Grit blade just won't go through, you know, tiles and ceramics. However, they're not always cost effective, but with everything, there's a time and place for it. If you have to go through a very abrasive material, this is the tool for the job.
Okay.
For further questions, please visit mkmorse.com or call our customer service department. Thanks for watching.